big thank you to all of the support that we've had across, while we've been doing this, carrying this prayer for the past 2 months. We're coming close. We're coming into our destination. And we're not going to leave them any choice but to hear us, to hear our words, to hear our prayers, to hear our drums, and to release Leonard Peltier. So I'm going to introduce our first speaker and have Elder Derek Shuck come up and introduce himself and share some words with us and open us up in this way.
Hello. My name is Derek. I'm with the Woodland chapter of the American Indian Movement. And we welcome our sisters and brothers of the Leonard Peltier Walk for Justice. As you all are aware, the major purpose of this walk is to demand that Leonard Peltier be free. As Rachel said, they have walked from Minneapolis, Minnesota to here and will continue their walk to Washington. We ask for your support in freeing Leonard Peltier. I am humbled to be able to be among these warriors that did this walk. Humbled. These people made great sacrifice, but it doesn't compare with the sacrifice that Leonard Peltier has made. So we pray and we demand that Leonard Peltier be free. Thank you.
on the sacrifice of these walkers, the sacrifice of this walk. It's not an easy thing to walk for 2.5 months, to leave your loved ones and your family, those people that you care about, not working, living on the road, camping, the physical strain of actually walking and running. But none of that compares, like Derek said, to the sacrifice that Leonard Peltier has made. In his own words, the only thing that he's guilty of is fighting for his people. And the sacrifice of this walk and these walkers, it doesn't compare to that. And it also doesn't compare to the sacrifice of his family, of the time that his children and his grandchildren and his great-grandchildren have been robbed of spending time with him. The pain, the not knowing, the wondering if he's going to be released. That time, those memories, you can't get that back. And so, when I was listening to Derek speak, that's what really came into my mind before I introduce our next speaker. And it is an honor to have the family here. And so I want to introduce our next speaker. Her name is Kathy Peltier. She's the youngest daughter of Leonard Peltier, and I want to invite her up to share some words with us. Thank you, Kathy.
Ja, się Kathy Leonard Peltier, ja, się na kajtynę, to przemamy do Holocaust. Shema Ambigay Shija Leonard Peltier. Good afternoon. My name is Kathy Peltier. As she said, I am the youngest daughter of Leonard Peltier. On June 26, 1975, there was a shootout that took place on the Pine Ridge Reservation on the Jumping Bull Ranch. Dino Butler, my uncle Bob Robidoux, and my dad Leonard Peltier were involved with that. And from there, I wasn't even born until November 2nd. And so I don't know who my dad is. I don't know him as a father. I don't know him as a real dad, because we had very limited time to visit him at the Leavenworth Penitentiary, which we had to share our time with the lawyers and people who were paralegals who wanted to talk to him, talk to the representatives up there. And so we were very limited time with him, and his phone calls to were like only 15 minutes. Not even that sometimes, because we didn't know what to say to him. So this years passed, and we spoke about our dad when we could speak. We've been speaking since we could talk. So this is not, something we just decided to do and speak about our dad. When Obama was leaving office, before that, he asked us a number of questions of what to do to get my dad released. A lot of people get upset with him because they don't know what we know. The lawyers told us that a staff member, all he had to do was walk over the papers, met Obama's demands, but it never happened. Obama never got those papers. So Amnesty International stepped up and asked my brother Chauncey, me, can you write a letter? We'll send it all to the senators. So this has been not just a few months fight. It's been all our life a fight. So Amnesty International got a lot of people to talk and say, okay, yeah, this is a need to free Leonard Peltier. We need him released. And so in that time, I was able to get in contact with Deb Holland. Deb Holland has called me and said, I support your dad. I support his release. So, and right now I'm in contact with her too right now. So this walk, I'm actually very proud of all the walkers. Believe it or not, I am. Because it is a struggle, it is a fight, to maintain your sanity and being closed off to the world, pretty much. So if you think I'm ungrateful, I am actually very grateful. I am so proud of you guys. When I went to Paris, I didn't go to Paris to be, I'm going there for vacation. I went over there for meetings, and this is just recently. We went to the parliament. We asked the French parliament, we're not asking for any special privileges. We're not asking for anything but to help support the release of Leonard Peltier and our Native issues. We weren't just there for the Leonard Peltier. There was one person there for the water rights and for the no dabble. And then we talked about the boarding schools. That was our whole week of talking to different people, and usually our talks were between 2 and 7 p.m. And it was an experience to talk to people that actually cared about our indigenous people here on North America and Canada. It was really an honor to be there to represent my dad as well. And they said they will do whatever they can to support and write letters to Biden. So I just wanted to give you a little brief update about that. And I have other obligations I gotta do. And there was 3 of us that went to Paris. And we talked about everything that we could. So again, I just want, so everybody that's here who's walking and who's participating in these events, I thank you. From my family, I thank you, because we appreciate the support. Some of you are new supporters. Some of you have been decade supporters. We appreciate you. And that's from the family. Not just me, from the family. So I just wanted to give you a brief update about what I was in Paris for, and really different. But so this walk is very significant in many ways, but we still continue fighting. So before I introduce our next speaker, I think it's important to understand context and history. And I know that there's a lot of you here that already know the context and know the history. You've lived it. And I also know that there's some here that may not know that context and that history, or there might be some people that are
watching online that might not know that context or that history. Or there might be media present here that might not know that context or that history. So Kathy kind of touched on it a little bit. The Wounded Knee occupation in 1973 started a period of time known as the Reign of Terror, a 3-year period of time. During this time on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, which is sovereign land, that's land separate from the United States, the FBI was feeding information and weapons to the corrupt tribal council and tribal chairman Dick Wilson and his self-appointed vigilantes, the Goon Squad, or the Guardians of the Oglala Nation. And they were attacking, assaulting, raping, and murdering the traditional people of the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation at the time. There's over 60 unsolved murders, uninvestigated murders from that period of time on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. And you have to understand that as Native people, we were not legally allowed to pray or to have our ceremonies or to sing our songs or to have these sacred items out until 1978 when the Native American Religious Freedom Act was passed. It was a federal crime for us to pray. So under that guise, under that mask, our people were being attacked and murdered for practicing our traditional values. And the elders and those traditional people of the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, they called the American Indian Movement. They called AIM out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, to send warriors there to protect their people, to protect their women, to protect their children, to protect their elders. And answering that call, one of those warriors was Leonard Peltier. There was an AIM camp set up on the Jumping Bull Ranch, which is a property, traditional family, the Jumping Bull family. There was an AIM camp there around some trees, and there was a house. In that house was mostly women and children, people under the age of 18. And on that day, an unmarked car with 2 individuals in civilian clothes came into the Jumping Bull Ranch property. And you have to remember the context of the Reign of Terror of what was happening during that time. A family's homes being broken into, cars pulling up, being shot at. So fearing the worst, a gunfight broke out. And at the end of that gunfight, there were over 150 law enforcement officers there. Local police, state police, tribal police, the Goon Squad, FBI agents, marshals, and 40 Native people that participated. At the end, one Native American man named Joe Stuntz was dead. His death has never been investigated. No one has ever been charged with his murder. And those 2 individuals that came in that unmarked car were 2 FBI agents that had come in on sovereign land with a warrant for a pair of stolen cowboy boots. So following the shootout, there were 3 arrests made. Bob Robidoux, Dino Butler, and Leonard Peltier. Bob Robidoux and Dino Butler were both brought to trial, acquitted, found not guilty on the grounds of self-defense, given the context of the Reign of Terror that was happening at that time on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. Leonard Peltier was brought to trial separately. No evidence or context given the Reign of Terror for self-defense was allowed in his trial. There was proven evidence tampering, proven chorus testimonies. And we know that now because even one of the lead prosecuting attorneys from the time, James Reynolds, just wrote a letter to Biden saying, "We messed up." This is what the feds told us to do. This was a criminally unjust trial. And that the only thing that they can do now is to let Leonard go. They tried to make an example out of him. That if you resist this system, that if you resist colonization, that if you stay true to your ways, to your traditional ways, if you fight for your people, this is what will happen to you. It didn't work. We're still here. We're still fighting today for our people. We're fighting for Leonard. I heard him recently in a radio interview. He said that he would never stop fighting for his people. But right now he needs his people to fight for him. And that's what we're asking you to do. We're not asking you to have to come out here and walk miles with us. We're asking you to fight for Leonard. We're asking you to call the White House, to write the White House, to come to these events, to support this walk, to bring awareness. Call your local members of Congress, call your local representatives. Tell your friends, tell your family about this injustice, this continued attempt of genocide against our people, because that's exactly what it is. Ever since the beginning of colonization over 530 years ago, genocide has just shifted and changed face, changed its mask. They continue to try to suppress us. We're asking for Leonard to come home. We're asking for our elder to come home. We're asking for our leader to come home. He's 78 years old. He's been in almost 47 years. He has type 2 diabetes. He has an abdominal aortic aneurysm that's fatal if it ruptures. He had a stroke where he lost 80% of vision in one of his eyes. He contracted COVID because they wouldn't give him his booster shot. Let our elder come home. Let our elder spend time with his family. Let our elder spend time with the earth, with our mother, with our one true shared mother. Let our elder come and pray with us, be in ceremony with us, hear and feel this drum, hear and feel his people, and let him know that this sacrifice that he's made for the past 47 years wasn't for nothing, and that we haven't forgotten about him, and that we're coming to get him. Jason Campos Keck, and have him come up and share some words with you guys. And appreciate him being here, protecting us and keeping us safe and always watching out.
Halito chi machukpa, yakoki ishto, chatasia oklasia, sahochifo yat, okla ituska. Chuhulo li, nabelia chin, anakma benoke. So it's just a basic greeting of who I am and who I represent. But the most important part was it was gratitude, love, and hope. So I hope whatever I say in these colonizer English words, we don't forget that. That I started with gratitude, love, and hope. So it's kind of difficult, or I won't say difficult, challenging to come to these small cities and small crowds, and I'm not disrespecting this beautiful city, and I'm not disrespecting the strong people that did show up. I'm just saying we go to these across the country, and it's challenging because it's like putting our words on the wind, almost like how we learn to pray, and just trusting that it's going to reach where it needs to reach. And for some of us, all of us on this walk, that faith and that prayer didn't come easy. Me personally, I'm 50 years old. I just started trusting the Creator that created me, or at least appreciating my creation. So I'm going to attempt to send that off on the wind so that it carries for some different kind of occupants on our lands. The first occupants are the ones that believe bless them, our Federal Bureau of Intimidations would not lie to the people. Those people have never had a training manual, simple training manual of the FBI. That's exactly what they're trained to do. It's exactly what they're trained to do. Intelligence to them means turning folks against each other so they can maintain control for the bigger controller, which is federal government. There's a lot of our occupants that believe our federal government would not lie and keep this injustice for 47 years from me. No way, right? Well, a lot of the people we've come across this Turtle Island don't even know the name. We have to explain the name. We have to explain the suffering. We have to explain the story. We have to introduce the family, the relative who was born and didn't get to know her father in that way, that good way. So, second type of folks I'm gonna ask this to touch the hearts of are our own folks that I know and I felt your prayers at home. I know and I've seen the numbers of writing to your legislatures or controllers or however you want to call them. It has not gone unnoticed, it has not gone unfelt. And when I was away from here, I told some young people to come to DC with me on an environmental issue. And I got on a call with these college kids, high school kids, elders, lived their whole life never speaking up. And I said, we have negotiated that they're gonna listen to you. I promise you your voice is gonna mean something this time. And they went and we won. We got a deal shifted that was gonna sacrifice a bunch of black and indigenous territories and freshwater sources for everybody. So what I'm saying is, if you young people come, if you elders come, if you people that gave up in 1978, 88, 98, 2008, 2018, if you come, I can't promise, I don't control nothing but these two legs. The Creator can set them free. We just can't be home feeling like it won't happen. So the other thing I want to say is, in order for that to work, there's going to have to be such solidarity like you never imagined. It means you might have to forgive that person that said something bad about you 20 years ago in the movement. It means you might have to forgive maybe that person that stole from you 30 years ago in the movement. You might have to forgive that person that you divorced because the two of you are needed to stand there together. You might have to forgive all kinds of things that have a smaller importance than this injustice. And when I say, smaller, I'm not talking about one man, although that should be enough, right? That little bit of injustice should be enough. I'm talking about that symbolization of that one man. Because if they can make his story disappear 47 years ago, and your kids and your grandkids ain't learning about it, they can do it to any of us. They come in this park right now and say, we are challenging the system. And, there might be 10 years worth of talk back, 20, 30, 40, going on 50, and they think they got away with it. So I'm asking to not let them think they got away with it. Let's let this man get free. So, I try to be humble with you because you are my people. But those controllers, I'm not very humble. They always want to give something less than what they've taken. So they'll say reconciliation and diversity. And I'll say land back, migratory, indigenous sovereignty and freedom to go wherever we want. They'll say, you know, it's necessary for our law enforcement to abuse and kill and shoot your children. And I say, it's necessary for our continuation of our people that you save and protect our women, girls, two-spirits, and people. They say we're thinking about clemency. I say we overdue for a free pardon. I will accept the clemency. But how long we've had to accept, right? How long we have to accept. So I just want to end because I get kind of heated. It's the only time I get to talk on these walks. And, and I want to say those that came, I wasn't calling you a small crowd because your hearts are huge. I'm really speaking to the crowd that maybe thinks that this is not worthy or maybe thinks that we aren't going to win, so why not, you know, why not be there? So I'm saying we're going to win if you be there. So please come and be there. I hope.
I want to speak directly to those people that are in those positions of influence in Washington, D.C. This walk, this prayer, this demand started over about 2 years ago. And we know that you are scared of our people. We know that you're scared of our prayers and our medicines and our ceremonies because that's why you wouldn't let us pray until 1978. We know that you're scared when you hear our warriors singing coming. We know that you're scared when you see our people gather together in prayer. We know that you're scared that we're coming. And we know that you're watching too. We know that the only thing that you really listen to is if your power is questioned or if your power is lessened or if there's a possibility that you could lose your power. And we know that you've got these elections coming up that you care so much about. And we know that you need the native vote. We know that you need the native vote in Arizona. We know that you need the native vote in Wisconsin. We know that you need the native vote in Michigan. So you better start doing some stuff for the native people. We know your tactics. We understand your tokenism, your silver-tongued words, because we've been hearing them for over 530 years. We know all of this because every single treaty that any of our people have made has been broken. And we know that those treaties are the original law of this land. And we know that you know that we are the landlords of this land, that you are on stolen land. So if you want the Native vote, then you need to start doing things for Native people. And I don't mean a photo op. I don't mean a fancy news article in the media. I don't mean some act of tokenism where you say you're going to do something to get us to vote and then you don't do it. I mean real things. I mean real things like land back. I mean real things like bringing our children home. I mean real things like prosecuting those people, these institutions that took our children from us. I mean real things like protecting our women, finding our missing and murdered Indigenous women and children in Two-Spirit. I mean real things like stopping those circles of murder that take our women, that take our children. I mean real things like letting Leonard Peltier go. So if you want the Native vote, you need to start doing these things. And I'm speaking directly to those people that are in those positions of influence. We're coming. This walk, it began with dreams. There were those of us in the movement that were having dreams about our elder. We didn't wake up one day and say, we're going to go to D.C. We're going to walk to D.C. We didn't wake up one day in some conspiracy circle and say, we're going to go to D.C. and demand that our elder be released. There were those of us that were having these dreams. The dreams that I was having, I would be in Leonard's prison cell with him. And he would be sitting on his bed with his face in his hands, and he wouldn't say anything. And I would say to him, don't worry. Your people haven't forgotten about you. Don't worry. Your people are coming to get you. Don't worry. AIM is coming to get you. And so these dreams that were coming, they kept coming, and every time I would wake up, I would feel like there's still a piece of me in that prison cell with him. And that's because there is. There's a piece of me, and there's a piece of every single one of you, and there's a piece of everybody that's watching this live feed that is in that prison cell with Leonard Peltier. Because until Leonard is free, none of us are free. So we took these dreams and we took them into prayer, into ceremony. And through those prayers and ceremonies, it came in that we were to walk. That we were to walk from the heart of the American Indian movement to Washington, D.C., to carry that prayer 1,103 miles to those people that are in those positions of influence to release Leonard Peltier. That we were to walk in a good and a strong and a prayerful way so that they have no choice but to hear our drums and to hear our words, to see and to feel our people there. So to those people, we're coming. Leonard, your people are coming to get you. The American Indian movement is coming to get you. And we're not going to stop until we get our elder released.
last thing to those people, because I know you're listening. If you let Leonard Peltier die in prison, you got a whole other thing coming. So you better let him go now. I'll introduce our next speaker, and maybe she can ground me a little bit here. Suzanne Smoke, she's the director for the American Indian Movement, Southern Ontario chapter. She's been here on this walk the entire time. She keeps us grounded, you know, in prayer and ceremony, because that's what this walk is. It's a prayer, it's a ceremony. And so every step that we take, every camp that we move, Suzanne is there to ground us, keep us grounded in this prayer.
I'm speaking in my sovereign language, which the settler foreign government told us that we could no longer speak. That it was illegal to speak in our language, that it was illegal to pray, it was illegal to bring our bundles. Not only did they tell us that as Indigenous people, but they taught all of you and all of the settler nation here to be afraid of us, to be afraid of our prayers, that when we pray that we're going to do something to you. But our prayers, as you can see, we are about kindness and gentleness and praying for Mother Earth. We're praying for all of the next 7 generations, and not just the Red Nation. We're praying for the Yellow Nation, the Black Nation, the White Nation, and the Red Nation. We are all human beings. And when we pray, we're carrying those prayers for our next 7 generations. Those are faces that we'll never see, faces that we'll never meet. Those are our great, 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 great grandchildren. And every step that we take today is going to affect them. So you've been taught that these songs, that these bundles are something to be feared of. That fear outlawed who we are, our identity, who we are as Indigenous people. Our bundle that we bring here, our buffalo robes, our eagle fans, our medicines, they all come from Mother Earth. They all come from the four-leggeds, the flyers, the swimmers, the crawlers, all part of creation. We're not here to convert anybody. We're not here to force our way on anyone. We're here to show you how beautiful and magnificent we are as Red Nation people. I'm honored to walk in this prayer. I'm honored to walk under the leadership, with the leadership of Rachel Thunder, powerhouse. Doesn't need any grounding. She needs to have that voice loud and proud in this prayer. She's been asserting that for every step of this journey. And this journey just didn't begin September 1st in Minneapolis. It began 2 years ago with those prayers. And it began because she is also a child of the American Indian movement, grew up in the movement. So I come from Southern Ontario, and people ask me, this is the American Indian movement. Why are you part of that if you're from Canada? And Canada is a corporation on my stolen land. There is no border for us. That border crossed us. We are all one nation. We are North American. We are Turtle Islanders. And so it's really important, this separation, this divide that's created. You know, I watch all the people as that heartbeat of our mother beats. It's a sound that each and every one of us can feel in our hearts. It's not just something that we're hearing. That drum beat. I honor my brothers here that are sitting, singing with us, praying with us. Because that heartbeat of that drum is called each and every one of you in. You feel it in your heart. Because it's the first sound that you heard in your mother's belly. As women, we are your first environment. We are sacred beings. We are water carriers. We carry that new life. Before that new life comes to the earth, that water comes first. We are sacred. And I'm a mother too, and you know, I left my daughter. I've been away for, well, this journey will be 15 weeks, longest I've ever left. My daughter's 23 years old, Ogamagi Shikokwe, head woman of the Sky World. It's been an honor to watch her grow up in our beautiful Sundance family. I have my beautiful Sundance family here. I have my beautiful sister. You know, I've raised my daughter in the ceremonies. I've raised my daughter with the language. I've raised my daughter. She's a pipe carrier, Sundancer. She's currently right now feeding our houseless relatives in our home territories. When this great sickness hit the earth, many of our houseless relatives were left unfed. People weren't looking after them. So my daughter and I and some of our aunties, we all went out and started feeding the people. And so now with the help of Laurie Hermiston, who created and named Dashmawan Bamajajan, we feed the people. We purchase all traditional foods, our buffalo and our elk and our wild rice, all of our traditional foods, our corn, our beans, our squash from our Haudenosaunee brothers and sisters. We fed our relatives and we feast them every week in this way. We provide for them because that's who we are as community. That's who we are as the American Indian movement. We work for community. We work for the people. And people have been taught to fear us. They've been taught to fear our prayers, fear this drum. Someone told me when that drum beats, it means that the Native people are conjuring the devil. We don't have that devil in our belief system. We don't have that. Our walk on this earth is a prayer. And as we graduate through that western doorway, we are graduating to spirit. We are graduating to that good life, Bamadzawin. So people have been taught to fear who we are. And if anything, I want to again say that we are all more similar than we are different. And we all have to use our voices collectively. And there's so much divide among the nations. There's so much divide across the world right now. And really, Mother Earth is crying out. Mother Earth is telling us that something's wrong, that balance, that imbalance is prevalent. We don't have to be scientists to figure out that we don't have seasons or that great change to the earth is coming. So what are we going to do with that from here to here? We have to work together. We have to work collectively. We have to work in balance. We, with the American Indian movement, we're prayerful. We're sober. We walk in a good way. And that's not what you've been taught about who we are as Indigenous people. We've been called savages. We've been called drunks. We've been called that we get all these special benefits within our communities. For us in Canada, possibly across all of Turtle Island and my territory, settlers reside on 98% of our land base, and we collectively as First Nations reside on less than 2%. Of that 2% of that land base is where your pipelines and your fracking and your poisoned water is flowing through our territories. Because we've been dehumanized as a nation, as the Red Nation people, we've been dehumanized and devalued. And when that happens to a whole nation of people, it's easier to steal the land. It's easier to steal our children. It's easier to rape and murder and take our women. And we have our protectors. We're all protectors. We're protecting our next 7 generations. We're protecting your next 7 generations with our prayers, with our songs, with the heartbeat of our mother. So when you see Indigenous people, embrace them. Walk with us, pray with us. Come with us to DC. Write those letters, use your voice. Ask for that clemency for Leonard, for our relative, for our brother. We ask that you use your voices, raise your voices in the way that you vote. Ask the local politicians in your areas, what is their stance on Indigenous environmental issues? What is their stance on Indigenous people within your territory? Whose territory do you walk on? Whose territory have you displaced in order for you to live there? Those are important things that you can do when we talk about reconciliation. For me, reconciliation, I see a lot of people skipping over accountability. And we're moving right to reconciliation. We as Indigenous people have nothing to reconcile. We've done nothing wrong. We're here to pray. We're here to sing. We're here to touch your hearts the way that we're touching the hearts of our next 7 generations. So we ask you to use those voices, ask you to use your prayers, that the perceived perceptions of power that be in Washington hear our voices, and we know that they're watching. We've been kind of being watched this whole walk. So we want them to hear our voices. We are still here, and we are not going anywhere. We are still here, and we are marching every step of the way in prayer and in ceremony, the way that Indigenous people have come to this land, come lower to the earth from creation. We are here in prayer, we are here in peace, we are here as a sober, powerful, magnificent Red Nation people. So we ask all of you to walk with us to DC. We ask you to raise your voices, to stand with us loud and proud as the American Indian movement, as Red Nation, Black Nation, White Nation, and Yellow Nation, all working together to free Leonard. We need to free our relative. And Leonard's story is all over the world. We're hearing from Sweden, we're hearing from France, we're hearing from all over the nation, all over the world, that people are calling, writing in, they're watching our lives. Leonard's story is getting worldwide attention. And I want to acknowledge all of our young relatives that are also incarcerated, that are reaching out to us and asking for help. The stories that we're hearing of our young men, a lot of our young men. I believe the incarceration rate is over 80% of the population incarcerated are Indigenous people. But yet we only make up 2 to 3% of the population, so something is really, really wrong. And they'll have you believe that we are protesters, that we are activists. What we are doing is protecting our Indigenous rights. We are protecting our languages, we're protecting our ceremonies, and we're protecting this way of life for our next 7 generations. As a mother and life giver, my very role is to raise my daughter in this way. And I want each and every one of you to understand that your role and responsibility is for your next 7 generations, that clean water will flow, that we will all come together in a good way on Turtle Island, and that we will have that equality. Because equality looks like discrimination when you're used to privilege. So it's really important that we all work together. We put our differences aside, that you hear the voice of Red Nation people, that you value the voice of Red Nation people, and come with us as we march to the Capitol. Come and use your voices in the way that you vote. So I say Chimiigwech to each and every one of you that come from the 4 directions today. Miigwech to our brothers, the heartbeat, that are holding this heartbeat of our mother. And miigwech to all of you that have come here today. We ask you to use your voices loud and proud. Chimiigwech.
We're asking for justice for Leonard Peltier, for him to be released, for that justice to be served in that way. But we're also asking for justice for our people. We're asking for justice for our women and our children and our elders and all of the sacrifices that our ancestors have made before us, for us to be able to be here today. And, we know that, those ancestors and our helpers, they walk with us and they're here with us. And we have a lot of prayers from our families and our loved ones. And, I wanted to take a moment and have our walkers come up here together to stand here and for us to honor them in that way with an honor song. So I'm going to call up our walkers. Get over here, John Martin, he's our lead walker for the Walk to Justice. Sherry Potts, Cynthia Young, Kitty Colbert, Jason Campos Keck. Kathy, would you come up here too, since you've walked with us, been a part of this walk? Kathy was with us for the whole first month of the walk. So whenever our drum group is ready, we'll sing an honor song to honor the sacrifice of these walkers, their physical, emotional, spiritual sacrifices that have been made.
people, we're carrying this prayer to Washington, D.C. We're going to be there. We're going to save that last 1 mile on November the 13th. And we invite everybody to come and walk that last mile with us in to the United States Capitol. That they have no choice but to pay attention to us, to hear us, to feel us, and to see this prayer in action. November the 13th at 11 a.m. we'll be walking into the United States Capitol, and we're going to have a rally at the Lincoln Memorial at 2 p.m. on that day. On November the 13th, we invite all of you to come. Everybody who's watching, listening, come to D.C. It's now. Leonard fought for his people. Now we need his people to fight for him. November the 13th in Washington, D.C. And on November the 14th, we're going to have a sunrise ceremony there at the mall. And a pipe ceremony to kick that whole week off that we're going to be meeting with those officials, the 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, and 18th. And we need your prayers. We need your support. So be there. Thank you, everybody. So we're going to close up with the AIM song, and I invite everybody to come here and circle around this drum. Feel this drum, feel this prayer that we're carrying for Leonard Peltier.